Well, hello, Steiff super fans. I am so excited to share with you something that I just discovered in my collection that I thought would be of interest to you as Steiff collectors and really also as doll collectors, because these things kind of bridge both categories. I'd like to talk to you today about Steiff's rabbit dolls. And these are actually animals produced by Steiff, but who also have either human forms or parts of their bodies are like human-esque or are dressed to be like humans, wearing clothes that you might see of the period. Anyway, I thought these were so adorable, and I noticed I had a few in my collection that sort of spanned the pre and post-war time. So I wanted to share those with you today, and hopefully they will bring you as much love and joy as they bring me as well. So let's get started. Okay. So the first really kind of rabbit doll that I have in my collection is called a rabiet. And here you can see her. She's got wonderful long human legs, like she should be dancing the Charleston. And that's exactly how and why she was produced. She has a loop here for hanging, so she could be hung in a car on the rearview mirror or as a pram toy or a little toy for your baby, but more so as a fun novelty. And this little girl was produced starting in about 1927 for just a couple of years. She was produced in three sizes and three colors. And although you can't tell from her velvet today, she actually was blue. I'll show you her fanny. That's okay. We have her permission to do so. And you can see the blue there. She's got her wonderful chest tag and her ear tag. And she's quite the little rabbit doll. Isn't she adorable? With her bright little nose, oversized eyes. And I just realized that her ears are lined in wire and are posable. So this is a wonderful and early rabbit doll by Steiff. Okay. Our next rabbit doll that I'm going to share with you is one of the rarest items that I have in my collection, and he's a new acquisition for me. This little boy was born in about 1927 and only appeared in the line for a handful of years, and actually is cataloged in the early Sortiment book as a rabbit doll, not just a rabbit, which I thought was very interesting, probably because his form is kind of little boyish standing. He's wearing these delightful and all original blue overalls. He's 17 centimeters, not including his ears. And he was produced in a few sizes and a few outfits as well. But this is a lovely and early rabbit doll. And one of the ways you can tell he is from the 20s is that if you look at his nose, you can see it's an X and the stitches are filled in. And that's one of the signs of a 1920s era rabbit. And these nice oversized glass pupil eyes and big ears. And he's got his long trailing F button and red ear tag remains. He doesn't have a hair left on him, no pun intended, but his form is still adorable and just beautiful. So that's another rabbit doll from the 20s. We're going to fast forward a couple of years to the 30s. This little boy was introduced in about 1931, and this is a rabbit doll as well. You see he's got the mohair head, which is super interesting, and his ears are lined in felt. It's jointed, and he's got his sort of humanized body. His arms are floppy, his legs are solid, they don't move. I don't believe this outfit is original to him, but it was sort of like something he would have been produced in. These were made in a number of different sizes and a number of different outfit combinations, sort of boyish clothing and girlish clothing. This would be a little boy. And I think one of the things that's super interesting about him is you can tell he was produced in the 30s onward because his nose is just a simple X without the fill-in, which is super fascinating. And he's also made out of mohair. And keep that in mind as we talk about other rabbit dolls that were produced just a few years later. His hands and feet are made of wool plush. Another interesting highlight about this beautiful little boy. The next rabbit doll I'm going to share with you is somewhat of a mystery because I cannot find him in any of the standard Steiff reference books, but clearly he is also a rabbit doll. And I'd like to give a shout out to my sister who designed this outfit. Clearly is perfect for him, but not original and not period. This guy was made in the mid to late 1930s, and this outfit was made 2 years ago. So clearly a disconnect there, but a perfect fit nonetheless. This little guy is called Papa Haas, or Daddy Rabbit, And I think that's because he's got these wonderful sideburns. These sideburns are made out of mohair, and that's sort of something you'd see in a father or a grandfather or a favorite uncle or something like that. What's interesting about him is the rabbit that I showed you that was made just a few years before had the mohair head and the wool plush tips on their paws. This guy has wool plush, and a little bit of longer mohair here. And I think that's because as things got closer to the late 30s and early 40s, mohair became more and more hard to get and more expensive at Steiff in Germany. So I'm thinking that this rabbit is sort of a more of a wartime production given his materials and appearance and such. But just a beautiful guy, a little bit bigger than the early one, but they are certainly best friends nonetheless. Now we're going to fast forward post-war to 1949, and what I'm going to show you here are two rabbits from my rabbit doll collection that I just love. This is a couple. They've been together forever. I bought these in 2010 at the Christie's auction in London. I was so excited about this. I almost burst into tears when I won these guys. Just love them. They are made out of wool plush, and you can see the wonderful airbrushing on them. They have their whiskers, and the outfits are all original. I gave her a nice purse because, you know, every girl loves a beautiful purse. So she has a purse which isn't original to her, but scaled beautifully to her. So these guys have their buttons, and then you're going to see on these usually a U.S. zone tag given the era in which they were produced, 1949 to the mid-1950s, in this size only. Also made these in a giant size, but these are the more doll-esque size. Lovely little bunnies and best friends in my collection and of your heart as well. The next Steiff doll rabbit that I have sort of fast forwards to the early 60s. This guy is from 1962 and was produced, I think, for 10 or 12 years after that. This is called Osilli, and I love him because he looks like he should be singing opera. I think they should change his name to Pavarotti. Doesn't he look like he should be just belting out something fabulous from Carmen or something like that? Anyway, so here is Osilli. He is head jointed with this wonderful open mouth, all mohair. His arms are not jointed. They're sort of like on wires and can be posable a little bit. His legs are stationary and flat, like earlier rabbit dolls. And he simply wears an apron, either for cooking or gardening, your choice. But really a beautiful and sweet production from the early 1960s. And the last rabbit dolls that I have were produced from 1964 through 1967. And these guys are also a couple. Oops, they're slippery. Here we go. This is Yellow and Yella. Oops, she's flashing. Stop it. And they're clearly named for the color of their mohair, which is a nice yellow color. And what's interesting about these guys is that if you look at the design evolution of the rabbits, this is a really kind of simple version of them. They have their flat feet made for standing with the sort of the naga hide material, and a very sort of simple outfits, a pairing. And unlike Osilli, their mouths are closed, which is probably for production efficiencies and to save costs, and really a very simple design. Nonetheless, totally adorable. They belong together, and a darling example of Steiff's mid-1960s rabbit production. They're also best friends and friends for life. Well, that's what I have for you in terms of rabbit dolls. Aren't they wonderful? I am delighted to share these with you. I hope that you have fallen in love with them as well and learned a little something. Anyway, that's what I have. Teddy hugs, or actually bunny hugs. Let's do bunny hugs instead this time. Until our next lecture unboxing, bye for now.